Anything?
Okay, so is it time to find out what these guys think?
I think
Get
so.
into that scenario?
I think so. So I think everybody was given a card when you came in, right?
They should. If you don't have a card, I think Ralph has extra over there. So if you do.
Everybody have a card?
Yeah. Do you need one here?
Okay, so the trick is to find all the other people that match your card. And that's your team. And so you can just pick a table with all the other penguins or all the other race drivers. Yeah.
I think so. I think we're good. Everybody comfortable with the number of people in your team? You feel like you could do some good work here? Create some chaos? Here we go. Here we go. Right? So the next step is going to be, you've got 20 minutes, all right? And you need to nominate somebody in the group who's going to take some notes for your group. So there's...
there's the big flip charts and markers around the room. You're welcome to use those.
There's a little ledge there. You can prop them up. Okay, somebody takes notes. And then somebody's your spokesperson, right? And so what we're going to do is we're going to go through this scenario and a question, and we're going to ask you as a team to come up with the answer to the question, right? And then you're going to have you're going to nominate one very fortunate individual from your team to present your perspective on how this is addressed. And the value proposition here is then you get these guys wandering around to help you out and provide input and answer questions in terms of what you're thinking, in terms of the approach. And then as you guys begin to present, they'll provide that feedback, right? Because I think one of the super valid things that can happen here is that when you step out of a scenario like this, where you're in a class or some kind of a session and people are just kind of talking at you the whole time, it's, you're like, okay, yeah, that makes sense to me. But then you go to try to put it into practice somewhere, and you're like, I'm really not clear how to do it. And you either may shy away from it, or you may do something else with it, right? So here's a time where taking some of the inputs that you've had from this panel and start to apply it within some thinking process. And we can provide that feedback and say, hey, that was some good stuff, and also bring this into the fold, okay? So go nuts, just really go after it and have fun with it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through the scenario and the question, and then start the timer and get you guys going. Everybody, are we good? Right? Wow. Enthusiasm. Post-lunch enthusiasm. Right. This is also a part of you don't fall asleep. So in transitioning from a decentralized program run by 58 local county agencies to a single statewide system, there were a number of undocumented business processes that represented unplanned and unresourced work. This was financial management and system administration work previously performed by the local county agencies that the state would be assuming with administration of the new centralized system. Okay? So the question, what strategies, including business process redesign, were needed to support the identification and documentation of new business processes, resource, and skill set needs? Describe the OCM strategies you would employ to make the implementation of new state business functions and organizational units a success. All right? So the scenario gives you context of what you're dealing with. And the question is, how would you apply the OCM within this context of this condition? Everybody comfortable? Yes, sir.
We're doing it for the state side, not for the counties that are...
We're doing it for the state side. Great question. Any more questions? Anybody hate this question? Anybody? Just anything?
Change it to institutions.
Okay? So we'll go 20 minutes. These folks will be wandering. I'll be wandering around. You can ask questions and have at it. And then we'll regroup. Okay? All right, guys. Let's get our thoughts together and nominate your speaker, representer, your thought leader of the group. Good to go? All right, so if I could have, just so we know, who is if the speaker from your group can just stand up so we know who's the Who do we pick on? All right, good. Brave people. Two, awesome. That's great. Who's going to be the speaker here for your group? Oh, you just happen to be standing? That's how you got elected? You're the speaker. Okay. Okay. Who's the speaker from this table? Blair, you're going to talk for your table? You're going to take it? Okay. All right, so here we go. So just to add in, the whole reason we did this is because all these stakeholders up here, all these sort of executives, have open rec positions in their organization. They're just trying to pilfer and trying to find out. Okay, where are we going to start?
If you had said that first, maybe we would have given it.
Oh. Why don't we start here so he doesn't get killed by his board?
Entertainment value.
All right. Oh, here I'll hold it up, and I'll trade. How's that?
All right.
I'll be your flip chart
Oh, thank you.
or whatever.
Okay, so I'm sure everybody loved this question as much as we did. I have a project management background, so I think our group, they all seem that way. We had a pretty good handle, I think, on the normal processes.
David, can you say who you are?
Oh, sorry. My name is David Remp. I've got 17 years with the Employment Development Department, and I was involved as the assistant project manager for the state disability insurance online system that went live last year. I left state service to private industry for about 3 years in Sydney, Australia, to work private industry, came back to the States, and it took 3 years for the RFP to go through the process and for a vendor to get signed. So it was like a hiatus for 3 years. And I came right back into design development, deployment.
Awesome.
So that was interesting. But anyway, I think we all had some good project management background based on the feedback that we all put together. Kind of a unique situation, though, coming with so many offices and then centralizing a process like that. The difficulty is getting all those people engaged. So we went through the normal assessment of, okay, you need a gap analysis, the process in the field in these 58 offices, and then centralizing all this. You need to get the stakeholders involved, which would involve all those folks in all those offices, and the communication plan to get all that together and have them all come to the same table where you get the steering committee done, you get the charter finished, you get your sponsor who is going to change soon, and all your plans around that you have. And I think the big thing is the engagement of all of these folks and how do you handle that, making sure that they're involved. So you do your gap analysis, your as-is, your to-be, and then you look at your resources. Had some good feedback from a lot of the folks on the panel here, and they're like, hey, you got 58 offices. You know, maybe there's some resource there. And also, we've lost that SME, that so valuable SME that nothing can function without them. Well, maybe not. Again, there's 58 offices. Get that feedback, the steering committee. Who else has this knowledge? And if there is nobody else that has this knowledge, well, like they said earlier in the meeting, you don't just look down and figure it out. Look up. The answer may be there. Go to the person. Ask them, you know, congratulations on your new vendor job. Are you working for the vendor who's going to be working on the project? You know, what do you have? Who are your contacts? What are you willing to do? Can you do a quick, can we have you for 30 days, do a knowledge transfer, see what you have, look at the high-level components to get that information, and then let the teams process it the best we can to fit that in. So to get through that, once you get your plan together, you've got all your processes, you're ready to go. Sponsor's gone. So Sumi provided some good input. She works at our department, so I had a little advantage there, understanding what she's been through. So I asked her about that, and her advice was very good in the sense that, you know, don't get caught up on the processes. They may not necessarily want to share those with you because they might be out of a job. So make sure that you understand the customer's needs. What are those 58 offices? what did they need from what is now being centralized, and how are you going to meet that? And make sure that the sponsor understands in the steering committee with all the stakeholders what those needs are, the fact that they all agree and support where you're going with the project and how it's going to be executed, so that they have buy-in from the beginning and have confidence that their customer is being supported and they can stand behind what's moving forward. And if not, they at least have a clear view of how to provide input and advice to the team. And then, of course, building in on something like this, the risk management is huge. I attended that session this morning, as did a couple other folks on the team. When there's so many unknowns in a project like this, you have to really have an ongoing tight risk management process over it, so that you can catch the things that are going to be missed, that come up, that you need to mitigate. And if you can get a plan for it ahead of time, of course, that's the best. But and just move from there and keep everyone engaged and communicated. I think the main theme I got out of the whole panel here was, regardless of what the subject matter of the issue was or the unique scenario, it was all about communication and what type of communication you needed for the individual or individuals you're working with. So I think that was the biggest thing I pulled out of it. But yeah.
Okay. That's it?
Yeah.
Good. Nice. Well done. All right. Now, panelists. Any feedback? Any quick thoughts? Are you serious? He knocked it out of the park oh, wow.
It was a double.
All right.
Just one thing with any group of stakeholders, but having been through this with counties before too, it is very hard to get 58 different counties to think of one vision of one system, even if you say you're going to do it, and so that business process and trying to do the gap, at some point there may be the need just to say, we're trying to come up with the best solution, but we're going to make decisions that not everybody will agree with, but we're going to move it forward, right? And if it's mandated, it's a little easier than when it has to be kind of, we ask you to participate, but it's a challenge. It is a real challenge. I mean, those are the right steps, but it's real hard to get everybody to get in lockstep on moving it. And counties have, in our systems, there's 60,000 welfare workers. So who is the representation of that business process for them that you need to have engaged to help make decisions on the project? And bringing up county staff is the model we've been using too. Like, you have this county, call them county consultants, but county SMEs, and they're on the project full time. But even then, you don't always have that communication of the decision making and everybody agreeing. So it's a real challenge. So.
Yeah, the only thing that I was saying is that, governance and decision making. When you have 58 stakeholders, what is your governance? It has to be clearly established up front. How is it going to be voted on? How is it going to be decided? How are you going to memorialize it? And how are you going to hold everybody to it? Okay, that's just one of the number one things. So.
Awesome. All right. Who's next? Yes! Courage under fire. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Is this on? All right. I'm Susie McBride. I work for the Department of Child Support Services. I'm a section manager for our Technology Services Division. And we actually went through I joined the project at version 2 of implementation for a single statewide child support system for all 58 counties. We were mandated by the federal government and paying fines to not having that done by a certain time frame. So it was a big vendor, failed twice. IBM came in and rescued, the $1 billion system implementation to stop the fines from the federal government. So we had quite an extensive time and a ride. So I completely identify with the situation. But to your point about the 58 counties and the decision-making process, we actually had the top 6, and we called it the Big 6 meeting, where we would get with them and say, okay, here's the federal requirement, and as part of this, we have to make a decision what we're going to implement statewide along with this government. So we had kind of who screamed the loudest, really, kind of discussions, and who represented the biggest part of our population. So I actually wrote down the wrong acronym. So OCM strategies to address this. We had our first step as ID and consult stakeholders and sponsors. Again, we are looking at it from a structured project management methodology, going through the initiating, the planning, the controlling, all those good PMI steps. Planning communications, establishing a charter in this situation, making sure we had a governance team. So I think we were just talking about that a second ago. Documenting the as-is and to-be, again, making sure once we get to a certain step, if we can't agree upon that, having an escalation, a risk management process to make sure we can implement that. And then as a result, get gaps, resolutions, and of course, it sounds like we have an unresourced need here. So we will acquire resources, get budget, get fundings, all those good things. And and then as part of that, we'd have a new operational model that we'd have to establish. Ongoing, we had some controlling communications that we would need to do. So sponsor statuses, recurring as we went through this new implementation. We'd have to support the ongoing needs. And then as far as our gotchas after the SME leaves, we had identify additional SMEs and committees. So if we had one person who had all this knowledge, we'd need to get a committee of people, right, to get all that knowledge back together. So we'd try to go steal and make decisions based on that, do some knowledge transfer, and if we need to, get people trained. When we had a new executive sponsor, we'd meet with that sponsor, set some expectations, and that would go both ways, I would assume, not just us. Share, explain benefits, impacts and risks, document anything they want to change, they need to change. Obviously, they're footing the bill now if they're the new sponsor. Understand how to meet their needs, and then generate the buy-in and the trust, like we talked about earlier.
Nice work.
Yay.
Thank you for stepping up. All right. Who's next? I like this table. All right, Judith, tell us a little bit about yourself and run us through the gamut.
Okay. I'm Judy Phelps, and I'm with the Department of Healthcare Services, and and I'm on the business side. I am not a PM at all. So we're kind of working through this from the other side. So I probably won't have all the steps right in spots. Okay, but one of the things the first thing that we wanted to do was to engage the counties, try to get them to give us their SMEs, and try to select them so that we could find out what the as is, so we could come up with that and figure out. We're assuming that in the process, and as an economist, I assume a lot. It's just, but in working through some of this stuff so that we could get the as is and be able to determine what it was that we were building at the state level. Assuming this is if this is an undocumented workload, we need to know what that workload is before we can make any further decisions. We also thought that we would use rather than trying to engage all 58 counties, that we would use a cross-section, allow the counties to select those SMEs that would represent them. So we would have folks from the larger counties, some from the middle-sized counties, go through there. The rural counties, make sure we don't forget them in this process, because everyone runs it a different way. So we find out what everybody's pretty much got in a cross-section and take that as our ability to use that to build to fill in the gaps. Then the county executive, who was deciding to bail in the middle of this with all the knowledge, we also decided that as soon as we got that information, that we would meet with that county executive, and again, very similar to over here, see if we can either get that information very quickly, or perhaps do a short-term contract or something like that to be able to get that information through there. Again, with the new sponsor, to meet with them, communicate, and thanks, Paul, for the suggestion that we that rather than trying to do that all ourselves, that we engage the counties again to develop and become program champions for this, to convince the sponsor that they ought to be part of that process, and then again using the cross section of the counties to have the shared vision of how the project should go together, that we would be able to deliver that identify where the resources could be coming from, and develop our whole communication plan so that everything would go out to the counties and deal with them the way that they could accept.
Good. Nice work. Well done. Okay, so we're like running on fumes here on time. So what I'd like to do, not to take away from the work that you have done, is we've already heard a lot of good concepts coming from half the group. So what I'll do is I'll hand it over to you guys, and if you can kind of bring up points that maybe you thought of that were sort of a delta away from what everybody else had, and kind of go through that.
All right. I'm Yasar Dabur. I'm with the Treasurer Office, working with the change management team on the fiscal project. So pretty much, actually, we are in line with everything you mentioned. I could highlight just a few things that we thought of. We thought of actually conducting a peer review, look for a state where they had similar project that was conducted in the past, so as not to reinvent the wheel, learn what processes they used, what methodology, what problems they faced, and how they mitigated these issues, lessons learned, and the like. Also, the communication, we have actually, we wanted to plan a communication plan, and we wanted to emphasize that it's a two-way plan. It's disseminating information and collecting information also from the counties. Because it is one of the issues that there were a number of undocumented business processes. I was thinking in line of joint application development, probably to have a network of champions in the counties where each could bring their ideas about how to standardize the process, what values they have to bring into the table, and have sort of a brainstorming session to collect these ideas. Anything else I'm missing here? We talked about ADCAR's idea as a methodology for change, and that's about it, pretty much. Everything else I think you guys captured. Thank you.
Well done. Thank you. All right, guys. Anything, where's the delta of things that you guys thought that haven't been presented yet, if any?
I think about the only thing that we might have is create and provide training and job aids, but specifically around identifying those things. Yasar took the last one, which was really around the desire, and identify the incentives from moving into the new system and communicating those incentives. So,
Actually, they have one that's I think is really important. To create the dog and pony shows.
Yeah, I like that.
Literally the road shows that go around from county to county. You build support with those things. You literally they work. Medicine shows work.
But I heard those over there.
Well, did I hear medicine shows?
One thing is
Sorry.
a challenge for me that I really like input is the concept of getting people to feel ownership, be participant. This is a state, and we cannot just give people up bonuses and promises. So it's bureaucratically it's impossible. How do you go about? Not everybody has internal motivations, and burning desire for excelling. Lots of people, especially at the father from the project.
Right.
How do you get these people? What's the best mechanism to get these people to feel a sense of ownership and the participation? Because if they feel a sense of ownership, their own engine fixes stuff, and then we have a lot easier job to move in this thing, because they use their own energy to move forward. This is the biggest challenge, I think.
Okay.
This thing has, and anybody can contribute.
Okay. Do you guys want to feel it? Do you want me to feel it?
Well, I'll just say, like we're talking about, we have 60,000 welfare workers. We're not going to get to the 60,000th and have them buy into a system replacement, right? But yeah, the key is having that team of leadership that is engaged in the project, that you're counting on them to communicate some of that down through their organizations, right? And regular meetings with the county leadership, we do that. And a lot of these counties have associations that they work through, so the child support directors, welfare directors. So we work with them very closely also to get the engagement and buy-in. And it's also, the consequences of not kind of going from the leadership. In most of our projects, we have hundreds of millions of federal dollars at stake, and fines and penalties if we don't do things right. So, and it may be the case or not in your department, but it's still, it's doing what's in the best interest for the state of California moving forward. But getting some kind of leadership team that can engage at the level at the state with the state to communicate down through the counties, that has the power to do that.
And if you're speaking about retention of staff, especially like we're losing the SME because they're going on to take a private sector role or something, the biggest things you can do for retention of staff is create the team dynamic. Project teams can be very close knit, and people are more than willing to. That's mine. Pardon me. I'm interrupting myself.
Don't you hate that?
So, yeah, I know, I hate that. So anyway, so what you do is you create that team dynamic, because you'll find that most people are willing to commit to the person next to them. They're willing to commit to the people in the trenches with them. So you as long as you have a shared vision, like we were talking about earlier, if you have a shared goal that we're trying to achieve something bigger, a higher goal than just day-to-day work. And then again, it also comes down to, when you're doing your succession planning, bring people in that take it seriously. Don't just fill a position because, you got to fill a position. And that's how you get retention, and that's how you get a high morale, and that's how you get people to stay.
And then the only other thing I would add to that is that people want to have a voice. Everybody I don't care who you are, you want to have a voice in your future. And as long as there's some construct that they maybe locally roll up their thoughts to one group or one individual who then represents their voice, just like government, right? Your representative, your congressman, right? As long as they have a voice in that brings some of that stakeholder management to them. Okay. All right, guys. What's your delta on what everybody else has?
I think we just take all the posters and stick it up here. That's our strategy. But along the lines of everyone spoke, but the only one thing I wanted to highlight was a couple of things. JAD sessions or have the SME leaving. Sumi helped us here with document some business processes that might help us transition and help with the centralized processes. At the same time, have all the 58 counties, regular meetings with them, kind of town hall meetings, and get their buy-in. And once you have the centralized process in place, some counties have to make some sacrifices. And that's it, they have to bite the bullet and go with the change and implement the centralized process. So that's where.
Nice. Good work.
Thank you.
All right, so I think we've got a raffle that we're going to do really quick. We're going to let you guys get out of here. I'm sorry we've kept you a little bit late, but feedback I think from us, I'll take the leap and speak for everybody up here, is that you guys have just been fantastic. Thank you for spending 2 hours with us. We really appreciate your thoughts and inputs, and so we'll do the raffle and then we can break out and go from there.
And all the CDs, little cubes on the table, bracelets, take an extra pocket full of chocolate. Those are for you. The CDs do include the presentation from today, plus some cool little resources and tools that were supplied by people on the advisory board. So just take those. And if there's extras and you want to take one back to your team.
Just so you know, the presentation that's on those CDs are the entire full day. So if you weren't here in the morning, you also have those slides. Well, thanks, guys. On behalf of everybody here, thank you for your time. Thank you for your engagement. I think this was wonderful. I don't know, Bill, do you want to tell them where the scenario came from?
The scenario came from the California Child Support Automation System project.
If it didn't sound familiar. So way to go, guys. Nice job. Thank you so much. Have a great evening, everyone.